guys, it's Leah. Welcome back, or welcome if you are new, and welcome to a new reading vlog. I am really excited for this video because I asked 4 of my favourite booktubers to recommend me a book and then I read them. Obviously, before we even get into the video, I want to say a huge thank you to the girls and the besties who recommended me a book for this video. I'm sure that you all know who they are. We read from 3 different genres and one of these books might just be like a favourite. I loved it so much. So with that being said, let's get into the book. The way that I am literally about to binge read this book to the point that I've had to sit myself down because I have read essentially 40% of this just today and I don't want to stop. The first book that we are reading for this video is Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham-Young. I wanted to read this book for so long. Ever since I first heard about it when it was blowing up on TikTok, and the fact that there is a really popular romance book that everyone is literally obsessed with, but it also has disability representation. I heard that the banter and the communication was absolutely insane and got 40% of the way through. I'm obsessed with them. I absolutely would have already said, but this was picked for me by Sarah and Heather. Thank you guys so much. The joy that I have that I am finally reading this. I don't know what it is, but so far it already feels like it could have potential to become one of my favourite romances of all time. Like, could this be a 5-star? I'm leaning towards yes right now. I'm sure everybody already knows what Out on a Limb is about, but we are following Win and Bo, who essentially meet one another at this Halloween party that Win's best friend throws every year. They instantly hit it off. They both have physical disabilities and it is the most, like, their chemistry instantly straight off of the bat. I was gagged, I'm not gonna lie. One thing leads to another. They end up having a one-night stand and then Win finds out that she is pregnant. So then it very quickly, this book is so fast-paced, which is probably one of the main reasons I'm absolutely binging it. We are grappling with the fact that Win is pregnant and her acceptance of being pregnant, her acceptance of having to tell Bo that she is pregnant, literally a stranger who she barely even knows. And it is so much about their communications together and their grievances that they face as individuals for themselves, especially when it comes to their disability. I think the representation is insane. Absolutely obsessed with them as individuals, but when they come together, they could become one of my favourite couples in like any romance book ever. I'm utterly obsessed, and I know I keep saying that, but genuinely, like, I did have expectations going into this that I was gonna love it. The fact that I'm not even halfway through just yet and I'm literally getting 5-star feelings, I am so happy. I feel like I'm gonna want to binge read all of Hannah Bonham-Young's books after this one. I know that there's a new one coming out in January 2025, I want to say, Out in the Woods or something like that, and it follows Caleb and, oh my god, what is her friend's name? How am I forgetting that? Sarah and Caleb. The fact that I'm loving them so much as side characters in this story, but we're also getting their own book. I cannot wait. Like, I need it right now. This is so good. As I said, I'm getting 5-star feelings. I feel like I am definitely going to finish it today. I will try and film my reaction to the ending. I have no idea where it's going to go, but like, it's filling me with so much joy. Thank you so much to Sarah and to Heather for recommending this to me, because I feel like I wouldn't have gotten to it for a really long time, and I'm having the time of my life. I can't wait to finish it. Okay, I have an update. Hi guys, I had every intention to update you more whilst I was reading Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham-Young, but I'm not gonna lie, I completely binge read this. Going into this, I did kind of expect to love it based on all of the hype. I've seen so many people rate it 5 stars, so many people say it's like one of their favourite romance books. I was going into it with pretty high expectations, but my god, did it live up to it. I'm utterly obsessed with this. I'm obsessed with Bo and Win. Like, this romance was so refreshing. In terms of the communication, in terms of the banter, this was absolutely incredible. I did finish it a couple of days ago and I literally still cannot stop thinking about it. I already want to kind of reread it. I'm so happy that I loved this. I loved the pacing. I loved the writing style so much. As I said, the banter and the communication was so refreshing, but the banter was also equally so funny. I did expect this to be fairly humorous because I met Hannah a couple of months ago and she was so funny. Just hearing her speak in person, she was absolutely hilarious. So I was really hoping and I was really expecting this to be hilarious too, and my god, it was. Like, I am so excited for Out of the Woods, I think is the next one, with Sarah and Caleb. As much as I obviously loved Bo and Win's humour in this, Sarah and Caleb's humour and just them as like secondary characters in this book, I absolutely adored. I'm so excited to read from them as main characters. But Out on a Limb was incredible, definitely up there with one of my favourite romance books ever. It was so close to being 5 stars, but saying that, I do feel like over time, because this is not going to leave my brain, like I already cannot stop thinking about it, over time there's definitely the possibility for this to become a 5-star. I ended up rating it 4.5 stars I think, but I'm going to rate it 5 stars on Goodreads. This was everything I wanted it to be and so much more. I'm so excited to read more from Hannah Bonham Young. Thank you so much to Heather and to Sarah for recommending this to me finally. I'm so excited that I finally got to it. I loved it and I cannot stop thinking about it. Before we get on to the next book and the next booktuber who chose for me to read a book, I would love to thank the sponsor of today's video, Serious Readers. I have been using my Serious Light for, I want to say, near enough a month now, and when I tell you, it has already transformed my reading. I cannot remember reading at night without it. I had always been really intrigued by Serious Readers, but I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to lights in my room and lighting, especially in the evening, I am an ambient light girly. I am absolutely somebody that the second it gets dark, I will live in candlelight. I have always been very picky when it comes to my lights and my reading lights especially, but Serious Readers have absolutely blown all of my expectations out of the water. I use it now religiously and I genuinely am completely obsessed with it. If you have never heard about Serious Readers before, they create reading lights with daylight wavelength technology, which I think is one of the main reasons why it is so easy on my eyes, and I will use it every single night, especially as we are going into the autumn. If you live in the UK, you know it gets dark so early, so quickly. I feel like this is genuinely going to be a lifesaver. I'm so excited to have my first winter with it. It near enough replicates daylight and the daylight spectrum as closely as possible. I also love how you can literally dim it or put it as bright as you like. It is so natural on the eye. They are definitely an investment, but I have gotten so much use out of it in the past month alone that I think it's absolutely worth it. Their range consists of the high definition light, the Alex light and the classic light. I have the high definition floor light, and one thing that I think is absolutely incredible is that all of the lights within the range get a 5-year warranty. As I said, I am already utterly obsessed with mine. I am so excited to continue talking about my Serious Light, to continue using it, to go into my first winter with it. Me and this thing, I feel like we're gonna have one hell of a good relationship. If you are curious about getting your own Serious Light, I have the most amazing deal ever where you can get £100 off of your order with free UK delivery if you use my code LEAH24. I will have the link at the very top of my description. Getting £100 off is such an insane deal. I would highly recommend checking out all of their lights for yourself. Although my code is for free UK delivery, you can get a Serious Light adapted for whatever plug you are, whether you're in the US or Europe. You can adapt it to whatever you need. And yeah, I am in love with my Serious Light. I'm not gonna lie, you're no doubt gonna see this in absolutely every single video from here on out. And of course, another massive thank you to Serious Readers for sponsoring this video. Now let's go on to the next book and the next booktuber recommendation. The next booktuber to recommend me a book for this video was Emmy. I absolutely adore Emmy. If you are ever looking for fantasy book recommendations, she is the #1 person to go to. If you want a fae fantasy, an epic fantasy, a romantasy, she's your girl, babe. I messaged Emmy and my god was she thorough with her response. She gave me options. So the options that she gave me were her favourite Kindle Unlimited read of this year, Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. Slow burn, political fantasy, romance. Book 2 is one of my favourite reads ever, but book 1 is such a good start. Recently I've been really wanting to actually make use of my Kindle Unlimited subscription because at this point, babe, every month it's coming out. I'm not even reading any Kindle Unlimited books, so I kind of need also to read some. The Spark of the Everflame is now going to be a book that I'm going to have at the top of my mind every time I want to read a Kindle Unlimited fantasy. So we then had Rachel Gillig as one of my auto-buy authors, and she's just announced her next duology, so you have to read One Dark Window. It's perfect for autumnal weather vibes, super atmospheric, gothic fantasy with a fun magic system. If you guys aren't new here, you might know that One Dark Window has been on my TBR since the beginning of the year. I have been fighting for my life, trying to read it, wanting to read it. But kind of simultaneously, I knew I wanted to read it for autumn because so many people did recommend it as a really good autumnal fantasy. So we are going to be reading One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, finally chosen by Emmy. Obviously I did say that Emmy recommended me one more, so for the sake of you guys knowing what else she recommended me, Daughter of No World by Carissa Broadbent. This whole book I was so unsure of, still am, but literally everyone else I know is obsessed with it. I know you like her other books, so I'm intrigued to see how you'd find this, especially the second half of the book. Honestly, as much as I would die to read another Carissa Broadbent right now, I kind of wanted to read a new to me author. For this entire video, to be honest, I kind of wanted to read books and authors that I haven't really read from before. But Emmy, thank you so much for your thorough response and your recommendations. I'm undoubtedly going to get to the other two because they sound so good, and the other one's Carissa Broadbent, like, I need to read more from her. But yeah, we are now going to read One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. As much as I've been so excited for this book, I genuinely know nothing about it. All I do know is that it is a fantasy duology, a gothic fantasy duology, and like the magic system has something to do with cards, so I'm going into it fairly blind. I'm very excited. I'm also intrigued to see if it lives up to the hype for me because I know everyone adores this, so hopefully I will too. But yeah, let's get reading and I'll update you guys once I have started it. I look like I haven't slept, babe, that's because I haven't. That has absolutely nothing to do with One Dark Window, if anything. Okay, no. We are going to go into my thoughts into One Dark Window. I did finish it, and before I even go into all of my thoughts, it feels like I read this incredibly quickly. I don't even think I gave you an update. You would have seen that I was buddy reading it with my best friend. You would have seen that we did finish it together, and I don't know. I've said so many times how this book has been on my TBR all year. I have been so incredibly excited to get to it, and do I think it lives up to the hype? Not really. I'm really conflicted on my opinions with this. I want to say, obviously, Emmy, thank you so much for recommending this to me. More so than anything, I finally got around to reading it thanks to you. We'll start with my positives. I really enjoyed the vibes of this book. I thought the first half was so much stronger than the second half. The first half, I was so excited. I was like, oh my god, this is exactly what I wanted. The vibes are perfect, so autumnal. Like, this is the perfect autumnal gothic fantasy. And I still absolutely stand by the fact, now that I finished it, that the vibes and the magic system were my favourite parts of this book. When it came to the magic system, it was so unique. I'm not somebody who has read a ton of fantasy. I have definitely read my fair share, especially this year, but I don't read tons, so I'm not like accustomed to all of these different types of magic systems or like different magic elements in a fantasy. Out of the ones that I have read, and that is absolutely down to the ones that I have read, I know that so many unique fantasies exist out there. A lot of them do feel quite similar in terms of their magic system, but this one didn't. This one felt so unique. I loved that the magic system was based on tarot cards. Was it a little bit confusing at times? Yes, but overall I really enjoyed that element. Where I think for me this one didn't necessarily work, I don't know what it was, I just felt like something was missing when it came to the characters and the plot. I wish there was so much more depth in terms of the characters, like in terms of our protagonist and then the love interest and also the romance in general. When things started escalating in terms of the romance, I just didn't really care, and it was such a shame because I am a girl who likes romance in a fantasy. But this one for me, I didn't really feel the chemistry. I didn't really feel their attraction to one another, and I don't know why. Oh wait, another thing that I also really did enjoy was our protagonist. So in this we are following our protagonist. What is her name? Elspeth. In this we are following Elspeth, but we are set in this kingdom where there was once an infection, like a plague of this infection. If this infection didn't kill you whilst you had it, you would have been killed if you were found out to have had it, because this infection basically came with magic if you survived. Elspeth as a child did have this infection, but she did survive, and from that she ended up having this monster in her brain named Nightmare. I loved that element so much. I found it so fascinating to hear this girl who had this second narrative, like a evil second narrative, this monster in her brain. I think that in a fantasy worked brilliantly. I loved it. I think especially too, I've never read that sort of thing in a fantasy before, so it felt very unique to me and very fresh and very exciting. I didn't really know where this was going to go because of it, and I loved that. When it came to the reveal, I was not surprised. I feel like it was fairly obvious, but equally I didn't mind it all that much. But once we got the reveal, I feel like from then on the book kind of lacked depth in terms of plot. I felt like the stakes weren't as high as it should have been, and maybe that is because it was setting up for the second book, which I am still definitely going to read. I'm still excited to read it. I'm excited to see where the story goes and it ends, but the stakes didn't feel necessarily high for me. I feel like I am absolutely in the minority. I know that this is probably an unpopular opinion because everybody adored this book. I definitely loved elements of it, but based on the hype, and maybe solely because of the hype, I was expecting something more and I was expecting something different. But that's not to say that it was a bad book. I ended up rating it 3 stars, so it's very much middle of the road for me. Like I said, I'm excited to carry on reading. I definitely am going to read the second one. I'm excited to see where it goes. It's just quite a shame that this wasn't everything that I wanted it to be, but I'm still very happy that I finally read it and I finally got it off of my TBR, so thank you so much, Emmy. But yeah, that was One Dark Window. I feel like I'm very much in the minority there. Please don't be fooled by my pumpkin mug. As much as I wish I was drinking a really cozy, yummy sort of cinnamon tea to fit the vibes of the next book that I'm reading, I am actually drinking a lemsip because I've been so ill the past couple of days. But I have actually started the next book and the last book for this video. Of course, before we go into my thoughts, the next booktuber who I asked to pick a book for me was Ellen. I feel like I've gotten so many of my romance recommendations from her, but I'm just obsessed with all of her content, so I knew I wanted to ask Ellen, and she replied, the book that we are reading, I am not gonna lie, I was not expecting. She did say it was a little bit of a rogue one. I wasn't expecting anyone really to pick this, but it is a book that was on sort of my autumn TBR anyway, so I'm actually really happy that I'm reading it for this video. Ellen replied, okay, I'm gonna go with a bit of a rogue one, but I've seen this book floating about for years and I've always been so intrigued by it, so I'd love to know your thoughts. I'm gonna go with Slewfoot. I was not expecting anybody to pick Slewfoot by Brom. This, I'm pretty sure I did put it in my autumn TBR video, and I said how this is an absolute TBR veteran for me. I've had this on my shelf, I want to say for maybe 3 years, and I still for some reason never got to it, but I've been so intrigued for years. I've seen so many rave reviews, so many people who I have very similar reading taste to have like rated this 5 stars. Going into it, I knew absolutely nothing other than it was like a horror, a sort of folk horror, maybe a little bit gothic. It spoke a lot of like Christianity and religious trauma and everything that I sort of love in the horror genre. I kind of built this imagination when thinking about this book that I was gonna love it because I'm an Ethel Cain fan. I don't think that makes much sense, but we're gonna go with it anyway. Yeah, Ellen chose Slewfoot, and as I said, I am currently reading it. I have already started it. I am this far through, which is on page 120, and I'm on chapter 6. I am actually reading it physically and also on my Kindle. One thing about me, I never buy a Kindle book if it's over like £3. Honestly, because I'm a bookseller and my discount, sometimes it doesn't really make much sense, especially if it's a book I already own. But babe, Slewfoot I paid £7.99 for to have it on my Kindle. Why I did that, I have no idea, but I had the time of my life reading it in bed last night, so I honestly have no regrets. So yeah, I want to say I'm about 40% of the way through this, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm not gonna lie, it did take me, I want to say like maybe 50 pages in to actually be obsessed with it. The first 50 pages are absolutely setting up this atmosphere and this setting where we are basically following this girl who lives in a really religious family in Connecticut in 1666. Like everything is very religious, kind of facing her own inner turmoil and problems when it comes to her land and having to give people her crops to survive. It is very much women's place in 1666, as you can imagine. What I am hoping and what I am kind of expecting from the rest of the book is, obviously the first half was setting up all of her grievances, all of her traumas. There's a lot to do with Satan and the devil and all of these really like magical folk horror sort of creatures, which I'm loving. This feels so dark and dingy and literally like wandering a dark forest. That is absolutely the vibe I get from this. The atmosphere, I'm eating it up. I'm really hoping the second half is going to go into our protagonist seeking revenge on some things that happened in the first half and just like women's wrongs, unhinged women, because I love that. Honestly, as much as I was not expecting to read this in this video, I am so happy that I'm finally getting around to it and I'm finally ticking it off of my TBR. And yeah, I'm going to try and finish it today, and I will come back later with more thoughts. So last night I finished Slewfoot by Brom. This took me, I don't know why, it took me so much longer to read than I was first anticipating. I think I said in my last update how I was hoping that the second half of the book was going to go into more like women's revenge, her taking revenge on all of her grievances that have happened in the book, and it definitely did. I definitely preferred the second half of the book more than I did the first half. This was so atmospheric, so vibey, so eerie. This is definitely a perfect read for autumn. Really loved the folk horror element. I loved the illustrations in this were so beautiful, and overall the atmosphere. I did also really enjoy the plot and the characters. I adored the development between Abatha and Samson. Obviously no spoilers, but I really enjoyed that. But overall for me, I think the atmosphere was perfect. If you are looking for a book this autumn that is very folk horror-esque, like Connecticut 1666, you can kind of picture the imagery and how dark and just, it was so atmospheric. I know I keep saying that, but it really was. I wholeheartedly think it's one of the most atmospheric books I have ever read. I'm so happy that I finally got round to it and I finally read it, because as I said previously, it was a TBR veteran. We're talking like 3 years on my TBR, so I'm so happy that I finally read it and I know what all the hype is about. I really enjoyed it. I think in terms of a rating, I'm currently sitting on 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. The perfect autumn read. Thank you so much, Ellen, for picking this for me. And yeah, guys, that was the last book that I will be reading in this video. Thank you so much, obviously, again, to all of the booktubers who recommended me a book that I got to read in this video. I feel like we definitely had success, and so many of the books that I read have been TBR veterans, have been books that I've been so excited to read for a really long time, so I'm really happy with how this went. Of course, as always, if you've read any of the books that I also read in this video, if they are on your TBR, definitely let me know what you thought about them, whether you liked them or you disliked them. If you enjoyed this video and you would like to see it again, I would absolutely love to do a part 2. I've actually had a couple more booktubers respond to my initial message, and obviously I didn't read them in this video, so I would love to do it in another one. Or if you watch until the very end of the video and you don't really know what to comment but you want to show you stayed until the end, comment any autumn emoji. And yeah, as always guys, thank you so much for being here and for spending some time with me. I hope you really enjoyed, and I hope to see you again in another video very soon.